Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you.
Hello.
Hi.
The first thing I want to say is that I've read the book. So I was like, and I felt all the emotions. I cried a lot. And so I was like, how can this show gave me the same kind of experiences since I know everything? But I have to tell you that I felt all the emotion and even more because
Oh,
it's
good.
on the way, in my opinion, to honor and stay true to the original material, but at the same time find a way to enrich the story with something new that is exciting also for the readers. So I wanted you all three of you, to take me back to this first
Thank you.
conversation that you had. How do you know that you wanted to expand the world and put new storylines and new things? And also for you, E, there was something that you were like, no, those are key details that we cannot touch. You can touch this, but you cannot touch that. Can you involve me in how did you start all this process?
We came knocking on her door not once, but twice.
Okay.
Most justice to the adaptation that we possibly could. So we went out of our way to be as respectful of the book as possible, even though obviously there's always things that change when you go from something that can only sort of live and breathe on the page and then something that has to be photographed on screen. So I hope that that's why you didn't say anything and not that you were just afraid.
I was not afraid.
Oh, no, good. I didn't think so.
I think they started out with the conversation about the effect that they wanted the story to have on screen. And I felt very safe because the effect that they wanted to create was the effect that I hoped they would want to create. And I think you centered the love story, you centered the mystery, but then as they were expanding the story, there was so much fun to be had in a cinematic way. There were these parties to go to, a 4th of July party or a lemon hunt or a hurricane or whatever, other things that I shouldn't mention because they're spoilery. But I felt like, oh, I want to see that on screen. I want to see that episode, and I could see how they were structuring the episodes to create suspense in that serialized form.
Yeah, I think that I think about little things like we were talking about Johnny's sexuality, and Emily had kind of said, well, yeah, I think he was coded as gay in the books, but in the books he wasn't willing to say it out loud yet. And we said, okay, well, maybe a teenager now, 10 years later, would be a little bit more willing to say it out loud. And then that opened up a little bit of a world into Johnny. So things like that, there were a lot of adjustments that we made always in the effort to stay true to the feeling and the intention that made this book so popular to begin with.
Yeah, and like Gat talks about his mom in the book, but you don't ever meet her. Mm-hmm. And so opening up Gat's family, not only to meet his mom as a character, but also to have his Uncle Ed telling more stories about their family and what their family dynamic is like, all of that just, came from like a sentence or two in the book that you then fleshed out and built.
Yeah.
You went from a first-person narrator that is really limited for first-person narrator. I don't think that she's not unreliable. I think just her view is limited because she doesn't remember most of the things. For Carina and Julie, which were the challenges that you had to took that and put it into a TV show where you have so many characters and storyline too? Because there were some scenes that, of course, knowing everything, I was like, okay, that's clever.
Point of view was the thing that was most debated when you're adapting a single point of view novel into an ensemble show. We had a lot of conversations about the rules of point of view. When were we allowed to step outside of Cadence? When we were allowed to, go jump to the sisters, even though Cadence wasn't there, even though we were telling a story about her family and her memories, did she have to be in every scene in order for us to be able to tell the story? And that was the biggest debate.
Yeah, ultimately what we decided was we wanted the world to feel full and, the secrets to start to be revealed in summer 16. So we decided to really limit it to just Cadence in summer 17. Mm-hmm. You don't see any scenes that don't have Cadence in them in summer 17 because we don't want to hear what the moms are talking about behind her back. It would spoil the ending.
Yeah.
the heart of the show is, of course, we have so many different and beautiful characters, but the heart of the show are the four liars. When you were looking for the actors that could play them, but there was something that you were looking for, and how did you know that you found them?
Chemistry helped. Part of finding the right gat and the right cadence was making sure that they were right together. It's hard to do on Zoom when people are worlds apart, but they made it work. And then we looked for sort of key elements. I would say with Mirren, in particular, wanted to believe that she felt like a weirdo. You know, the Sinclairs are beautiful. It's in the first couple of lines of the novel, they're beautiful. So how do we believe that she's insecure? And Esther beautifully found that. And then with Johnny, Emily said this beautifully earlier, like, he can be hard to love. He's a really privileged white guy who has a private island and says some pretty terrible things. How do we find the actor that comes at that from a place of pain and not anger? And, you know, I think we did a very good job. I'm very proud of that cast.
They did say so many times as we were getting ready to shoot, the network kept saying, make sure Johnny's not too unlikable, and, you know, make sure that we care about Johnny. You should write the words differently. And we were like, well, no, because Johnny does say these things. Johnny does blurt and speak before he thinks. He speaks from a place of privilege. Joe, the actor, needs to be the one that makes us love him. And the minute we shot him the first time, none of us were worried. We just knew, like, his eyes sparkle. There's something about his whole vibe that makes you want to hug him, you know, and tell him it'll be okay. So he gets a lot of the credit for that.
When you're watching the show, you get the feel, because We Were Liars can be a mini series, but you feel that there are so many secrets to tell and so many other lies to tell. There was something that you all three talked since the beginning to expand in the Sinclair universe. We will wait.
The second book is my favorite. So okay. I really hope that we get to play in that world, and we definitely, you know, stole some threads from it for the first season.
Yes, we were able to really build out our world creatively and get into the minds of the other characters, because Emily, thank goodness, in the intervening years of trying to get the show made, ended up writing the prequel Family of Liars. And it just set the stage for something that felt very specific to Cadence and really let the audience in on a little secret, which is this is not just about a bad thing that happened on Beachwood Island and We Were Liars. This is about a generational series of bad things that happen on Beachwood Island.
Yeah,
I hope that audiences watch the first season and want to know what made the Sinclair sisters the Sinclair sisters. I hope that they also want to know how the characters move forward from the reveals at the end of the season in present day. I want to know.
I think my time is up. Thank you so much. It was very nice meeting you.
Thank you so much.